Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Hit Refresh Business Resilience in a Post-COVID World, presented jointly by Livemint and SAP. I am Roudra Bhattacharya, and I welcome you to a virtual panel discussion on strategies for business continuity post the pandemic. Be it social dynamics or consumer behavior, COVID-19 has turned everything upside down. So, how can key stakeholders take into account the realities of the new normal and ensure continued growth? As the needs and preferences of their customers, suppliers, and employees change, what strategies do they need to adopt? Needless to say, a few key initiatives are crucial in order to maintain business continuity. What are they? I will let our experts answer the same for you. I am joined today by an esteemed panel of thought leaders. Uday Raj Anand, Director, Parijat Industries; Lalit Agarwal, CEO of V-Mart Retail; Anil Kumar Garg, Director at Aroma Agrotech Private Limited; and finally, Mr. Mahendranath Talluri, Regional Sales Director, North at SAP India. We have a fairly good mix of panelists across different sectors. A very warm welcome to each one of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Through this panel discussion today, we will explore how key decision makers can navigate the muddy waters of forced closures, supply chain disruption, and loss of business, while keeping employee satisfaction top of mind. Without further ado, let's get started. My first question is for Mr. Anand. How, in your opinion, has the agri-input industry bounced back in India post-COVID, and what role has that played in the country's economic revival?
Great. Thanks so much. I think a lot has been said about how the agricultural sector is kind of the beacon of hope over the last few months and quarters. And certainly, I would say that it certainly has been a well-performing sector in the sense that not only have we been able to sustain growth as a sector, and I don't just mean in terms of the production of agricultural goods, but also in terms of the agri-input industries to which I belong. And that certainly has been, would be providing a continuous impetus to growth. I think some newsprint has also been spent on the role of kind of a burgeoning rural demand, or at least a steady rural demand, on providing some kind of a safety net to the economy. And that too, I think, certainly, it cannot be underestimated, the role that has played, because as the other sectors have been much more erratic in terms of demand behavior, we've seen rural demand being more steady. Having said that, to what extent can agriculture actually be the savior for the economy is I think we have to be cautiously optimistic on that. As far as we know, rural demand in a significant way is largely driven by consumer durables and some segments of agri inputs, etc. So to what extent it's able to provide impetus to other industries is a question that remains to be answered. But I think the combination of a good monsoon this year, supportive climate, certainly has been a saving grace for the economy. And I think most importantly, as a closing comment, agriculture as kind of an employer of last resort, I think that has been exceptionally important in providing a safety net to many Indians who did not have livelihoods in this time, and were able to go back to that, even if at very low levels of productivity or low levels of earning, but at least they were able to remain on this side of the margin of survival. So in that sense, I think it's the role that it has played as in that sense may not get captured in macroeconomic data, but is essential for what we understand as kind of holistic economic performance.
I think, Mr. Anand, there's a very, very strong point that you mentioned: the protection of livelihood as a cushion for the rest of the economy, where industry, went through a very hard time in the traditional sense, right, for the past few years, and obviously played. There was the advantage of certain factors such as the good monsoons and a lot of workforce coming back to the rural areas. also helped. So, what were the most glaring challenges posed by COVID-19 that disrupted the agricultural industry, in your opinion?
In my opinion, due to COVID, there is a lot of hamper in everything like raw material, like production, like labor, like finances. There are a lot of hampers,
Right.
and that hit industry very more. Or instead of that, our industry was running starts after 15-20 days, but production hampered very much due to labor because when labor was with us, there was no production. After that, when government starts to trains to shift labor to their home, after that we hit a very bad in production, in supply chain, in like that.
Okay. So you're saying the biggest challenge was the labor shortage that you felt in the industry. But
Yeah.
in terms of the overall agriculture industry, were there other challenges as well in the COVID sort of scenario? I'm sure supply chain availability of key inputs, have they been also hampered, or you think they weren't as big a challenge at that point?
Yeah, inputs were no problem because we have some stocks for like 3-4 months.
Okay.
So that was not issue of raw material availability of raw material or like that. And but transport, ocean problems, shipping problems. There are a lot of problems that hamper a business very much.
Right. Mr. Talluri, you partner with global organizations across industries, right? And what are the major challenges that they are facing in technology adoption, and how can these be solved? Can you help us with a few examples regarding SAP's role in helping with these challenges?
Sure. So, Rudra, I look at the whole period into the two buckets actually. If we look at the first 2 months of period, it was completely new and people were really struggling to keep the lights on. So that is where in the first 2 months we had seen most of our customers approach the technology as a savior that time to ensure that either they get connected to the marketplaces to ensure that the product is available for the customer to buy, be it be fashion, be it be CPG, or be it be food, agro, any kind of product, right from the transportation and everything. People wanted to ensure that they get connected to the network and they're available for the customer. And then once we look at that period as a most important period to ensure that the lights are on, the next period comes is that people wanted to look at this as an opportunity. So SAP today works in 26 industries. Out of these 26 industries, there are 3-4 industries which are severely affected. For them, this right now in the next 1 year is going to be very challenging. For those customers, it was sustainability is the most important thing. How do they continue their business and ensure that for the next 12 months they run the operations, they save their employees, they save their assets. Barring these 4 industries, if you look at rest of the industries, they were all trying to, after those first 2 months of period, they were trying to see how do we utilize this period to ensure that in future we come out with more innovative products or the services. That is where I see most of the customers started looking at long-term projects, because when your business is in peak, you don't have resources sitting and working on the process improvements or working on the new products and all. So that way these industries have taken very bold steps, and I was literally confused when some of inquiries had hit us that a fashion apparel company looking at a huge digital transformation project, or an internet-based cab services provider was trying to get into an electric vehicle. So this is completely different angle altogether, right? So that's what our experience has been. I mean, while the COVID has brought down so much of negativity, but I'm personally I'm impressed the way the customers and the companies have really came out of this situation. And technology, the second part of your question, how the technology has helped in the first few months of the period, most of the customers started creating new products and new services to ensure that the minimum revenues are generated. I'd seen a lot of chemical companies started producing a lot of sanitizers and other relevant products, and at the same time I'd seen a lot of fashion companies started putting the PPE kits and the masks and around the products. So suddenly you start creating a new product, but you need to have a presence in the marketplace for you to sell these products, or the customers should know that your company is producing. That's where SAP has helped, because we do have a network economy, and we do close to 2 trillion in commerce on our network. So we were able to help those companies to put their products and the services on the catalog, so that across the globe, when the companies were interested to release the RFP sent to the new vendors, these were available. And also this has resulted into a very good satisfaction to SAP, because there was a customer in Germany who wanted to set up an hospital as part of a CSR activity. And for him, he was an automotive company and he never set up an hospital kind of thing. But they were able to set up the whole, procure resource and procure the entire hospital, 100-bed hospital equipment within 24 hours time with the availability of the technology. That's how it has been a very tremendous and inspiring experience for SAP.
Fantastic. I think and the interesting point here is that though these were difficult times, it has led to a lot of innovations at companies at individual levels and also industries as a whole. And I think technology has played a significant role there to enable companies to do that. I mean, setting up a hospital in 24 hours, wow, that's like...
Roudra, if I can just quickly come in, just to echo what has been said. I think, what has really got proved when an event like this happens, when overnight kind of you have to innovate as a business, I think it really has got demonstrated that those businesses that were well equipped with systems and technology enabled processes were able to weather the storm much better. I think had proper PPC planning models, managed to overcome those would have managed to overcome those challenges much better than those who didn't. And I think that's also driving some of this greater hunger towards technology adoption. Right. And I think that's certainly true for us. I also, incidentally, I run a fitness services company, which was entirely offline. And, that very much what has just been said, that one has to come up with a completely new way of thinking about business and taking it online. And I think that it's absolutely spot on in the comments just made.
I mean, this is the interesting part. You see a lot of innovation happening across industries. I mean, hotels are sort of starting home delivery from their kitchens, right? Because nobody's going to hotels anymore. I'm talking about high-end chains, and this is innovation across. Mr. Agarwal, you wanted to add to one of the points one of our colleagues and our co-panelists mentioned, I think.
I think definitely I agree with everyone, and there was opportunity. There is what Uday said and about how monsoons and agri and even the migrant labor helped the rural economy, and Anil ji on how do they the challenges that they faced in factories and in with labors and stuff with the government regulations. And I do agree with Mahendranath ji that definitely these are times when people are more aware, and people are more conscious, and people are more zoomed out, looking at the macro picture and looking at the forward picture. And digitalization has certainly been one of the most beneficial category. And people have understood that the way forward and the future forward is digitalization. So the rate of acceptability of digitalization got accelerated, and that really brought in the whole thought. Because of COVID, people were at home and they wanted to work, and certainly more and more digitalization have helped. And people, the worst of the people who would not touch a WhatsApp account also got hanged on to the digitalization piece. So I think definitely all these things have really we have seen across, and but yeah. Business will have to come back, and then people have to start spending so that the things come to normal. Whatever. I don't know. Am I supposed to go off on with your question, or yeah, please tell me.
So you're essentially saying that consumer spending is expected to now come back. It's not at the same levels yet, but you see hope. around the corner. This is what I hear, right? Now, a specific question for you in terms of retail, right? I mean, be it digital fitting rooms, cashless payments, or e-commerce platforms, technology is, taking over all aspects of retail, the entire chain, value chain, right? So, what are some of these key trends over the past few months that you sort of now see becoming permanent as we sort of go ahead? I mean, things that you would have, the changes in process, product that you would have made over the past few months because you've had to, right? Which will now sort of become permanent as we go ahead.
No, I agree. Technology has been the backbone of retail supply chain management and logistics for more than, almost 2 decades now. But in recent years, we've seen, the emergence of customer-facing digital technology, which is, customer relationship management, loyalty programs, digital analytics. These are gaining more prominence. And we are witnessing now that, particularly post-COVID world, is a sharp acceleration in digital adoption, both, as I said, with customer and by businesses. But among customers, those who were already digital savvy, their day-to-day lifestyle and consumption pattern is becoming more digitally dependent. And for those who are fence sitters or limited users or digital of digital devices, they have been compelled to embrace is what I say. And that is, we are seeing a sudden expansion in the digital customer base, and we believe migration to digital is an irreversible or permanent shift. Although across social economic stratas, different tiers and different kind of people, it would be happening in varying degrees of online plus offline mix. So for retail business, the accelerated digital adoption and shift to a more digitally dependent lifestyle is translating into a strategic necessity to design and the entire customer experience to be seamless between online and offline world, physical and digital. So, obviously this means back-end processes like supply chain, logistic have to be integrated more closely in real time with front-end customer-facing processes. And right to the product discovery, buying, post-consumption life cycles. That's what we believe is driving the next generation of digital adoption. And then, yes, beyond everything is going to be the culture, which has also changed, and people's culture in the team, culture at the organization level, adoption by the people internally to use digital, believe in digitalization. It's no more a myth. It's a reality. It's an honest truth. And you need to pinch yourself to understand, boss, this is the time. And you can't go away from it. And because this time has really showed us everyone the path that's the way forward. And it was bound to come. It was always a matter of time when it will come. So that whole piece is accelerated. That's what my thought is. Right. But yeah, there are a lot of things which are going to stay. People's ability.
Could you give us some examples, sir? I mean, for example, I'm sure e-commerce would have been a major focus area in the last few months when your footfalls in your stores would have reduced, right? So what kind of a shift has happened? Did you see, and how much do you expect to remain? Because obviously the digital consumers, the numbers you mentioned, and I was reading somewhere, I forget the exact number, but in the last 6 months, India added a massive number of digital consumers to the economy that were in there, and that was expected, right? So now more on a front end consumer facing front, which is what you mentioned. What is the change that has happened that you have seen? Very, very broad numbers. I'm not asking you exact numbers. And how much do you think will be permanent going ahead? I mean,
yeah. So definitely during lockdowns and during bad times, people were all digital, and that was the only option available. And even after that, lockdown continued in certain states. People don't want to go out of the house. People have started using it. And there is a large splurge. We were not as active in digital commerce as before. We do have a panel, and we do have an omni-channel business, and we saw a lot of attraction coming in. In the month of July, it was a peak for us in digital. But yeah, some remain, but still people do want that touch and feel, that interaction. They want that experience. So we've seen large part of this tier 2, tier 3 towns, large part of the mass segment, they've come back, and they've come back physically. They want to experience. They don't want to sit at home on the screen. They say that they would buy only 2 or 3 times in a year, at least with fashion. They don't want to buy it looking at a photograph. So that's the real experience, because habitually people are still not inclined. It was a need-based adoption which was there. But yeah, it will definitely move the needle with youth and large part of young population. But that is going to remain somewhere or other.
Got it, sir. Mr. Talluri, sorry, Mr. Anand, you
But
want?
if I can just come in, on agri inputs, it's a sector where no one ever really thought that the farmer will transact online or will be interested in buying these services online. But and of course it's a small fraction now. But the last few months have also seen so much activity in the agricultural space of reaching out to farmers through digital. And it's actually surprising the degree of growth in that segment and the number of players that are now in the ag tech space, primarily just using technology to reach out to farmers and distribute products. So I mean, it's kind of it may not be a very big movement, but certainly an interesting thing
This
on the
is very
horizon.
interesting. Yeah, this is a very interesting point. So which platform? Where are they buying? Are they buying off Amazon? Are you sort of selecting directly via digital to farmers?
Our specific industry, because it's highly regulated, you can't just go through regular channels, and so there are a bunch of specific ag tech companies who have emerged in that space who kind of fulfill all regulatory requirements to distribute chemical crop protection products. But just surprising the number of those players that have emerged, all VC backed by big names, big funding, and actually doing quite a significant amount of penetration, at least in progressive states.
Mr. Garg, this my next question is to you. With social distancing norms in place, logistics regarding supply and distribution in agriculture has gone haywire. Is there any way in which technology has aided in mitigating some of these concerns regarding logistics, supply, and chain?
No doubt technology play a big role, but in our industry like agro industry, there is a very big problem about social distancing because in our factories, labor work in groups. They cannot work alone. For example, they have in one group 7 to 8 people, many times 10 to 15 people work together. So it is very difficult to maintain social distancing with them. But we try with our best to maintain because we provide them big space for working. Like many times we give them 20 by 20 space to work anything. Now we provide 30 by 30 to maintain distancing, but it is very difficult. We cannot maintain social distancing in a very norms, in full norms like government of India.
Got it. Have you? But so the follow-up question there is technology has helped is what you mentioned, but is there any specific instances that you can maybe mention where you may have utilized technology, some new process or a product to make sure that your supply chain or the process is simplified, it's easier, it's more efficient than what it was before?
Actually, in our specific industry and in our company, so we are bulk suppliers. We are not direct touch with customers. We are not supplying direct to customers.
Okay.
We supply to our distributors and wholesalers. So in that case, we already adopting our technology before, so we have not maintained any much more technology in that system. But in our factory, in working environment, we are trying to make some new technology, new automation, new things, so we can reduction our labor, we can maintain our hygienic and social distancing. Like this, we are doing something.
Got it, sir. Got it. Mr. Agarwal, so my next question is for you. So COVID-19 has seen a shift in customer preferences and their expectations from a shopping experience. Now, you did mention e-commerce, and in August you saw the peak. What measures are businesses such as V-Mart taking in order to deliver a very personalized experience to these customers? Because digital allows you to give a very personalized experience. You know a lot more about your customer, and thereby next time you interact with him, you're able to sort of give him a very focused experience. Are you looking at that? Is there a requirement for it, especially in the TG that you work with? What is your view there?
Basic and a fundamental level, I believe customer expectations and preferences have remained what they were before pre-COVID.
Okay.
Majority of our target customers are, as I said, youth and young families who are living in tier 2, tier 3 towns, who want aspirational fashion choices in a limited budget. While the customer expectation normally, what I would say has not changed because they want that same thing. They want the same product. What is changing is higher focus on value buying, due to lesser resources at their disposal. Higher focus at personalization as customers seek more for less. This is the time when everyone want more for less because you are not earning so much. Higher focus on functional needs, which is homeware, comfort wear, leisure wear, casual wear. Higher uses of digital platforms due to health and safety reasons. We have also observed, that customer with lesser resource at their disposal are even more mindful of their spending. Therefore, they want to be even more sure that the retailer they are going to is worthy of trust, monetarily. Secondly, there's something which is new in this pandemic world is, customer realizes that they are entrusting the health and the safety of themselves and their family members with their retailer,
Right.
where they are shopping, eating out, or watching movies. So these are two-dimensional trust are even more true for value fashion retailers like V-Mart. So to personalize the customer brand experience, businesses are looking more closely at the core customer personas they exist for and are designing the overall product and service experience to meet that needs and aspiration. This is what we are also driving at V-Mart.
Right. Right. So, as a personal experience, for example, you mentioned that people are looking at value buying. I mean, one of the things that are potentially possible is that, okay, if you know this one customer is a discount hunter, you can sort of give him more similar options. You can cross sell your other products, things like that. I mean, these are definitely things that would you be exploring such options using analytics to sort of identify certain customers and thereby suggesting the right products?
Yeah, Roudra, definitely analytics is the core and the backbone of every retailer because we've got more than 8,000 live options and more than 20,000 live SKUs which are
Right.
there. So, without analytics, our world is dead. So, and we've got 260 stores and across territories with tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 with different seasonality, different fashion, different aspiration, different time, different sizes. You need to have analytics and maybe more than analytics, a live analytical tool which is driven by AI, which has everything doing on the online model. So there are things which we have been already implementing, but every time that you do, the glass is always half filled. There are rooms to add on lot because whatever you uncover and you scratch. That's the scratch of the surfaces.
There's always so much more you can do in
There
terms.
always so much when you start discovering, you get into too deep. So there is no doubt every analytics helps, and one has to keep doing and keep noticing and keep ensuring that we are doing more and more. And then the technology team also doesn't, or the technology world doesn't also stop. So they also keep bringing in newer things and newer thoughts. So Mr. Mahendranath will be very excited offering me one more today. So he's sitting here doing that.
Mr. Talluri, my next question is for you, and you did touch upon this in your previous answer as well. So, what are the key trends you see in leveraging technology across specific industries, and which sectors have seen faster technology adoption, in your opinion?
Rodra, if I have to be frank, this was a complete, surprise for us. In the last 6 months, especially in the North Territory where I'm working, when I have looked at, I thought that the technology service would be more, looking forward for this kind of, new projects at this point in time. But the ground reality from the last 2 quarters that we closed is that every customer or every industry, until and unless it is not, they are not from those 2-3 industries which are severely affected, and today's their point is that how do they survive? Barring all the industries are looking one or other way, an option to innovate and try to do better. Few of the areas every customer or every industry is looking at is that, examples like, sourcing or a procurement process automation. Because you don't have today luxury of calling the vendors and doing a physical meeting and collaborating, or you cannot run your purchase organization 100% sitting in your office, right? So you have people 30% occupancy, 50% occupancy only, you can run your offices. So you need to have the technology to ensure that you run a seamless collaboration with the suppliers as well as with your dealer distributors and all. And that is where another thing, if you see, in the past, there was an hesitation from the people to use these, tools and technologies and give the input into the system. because they always feel better to have a physical meeting or a physical negotiation kind of thing rather than putting the values into a predefined template. But now with this COVID coming into the picture, everybody wanted to shift to a virtual from a physical. So a lot of sourcing areas we have seen people started looking at sourcing and the procurement transformations. And especially when you want to look at an IT or a digital transformation-led initiative, you need to have three basic things in place. One is obviously the investment that still is there, but the investment side, the requirement or the ask of the customer has changed. Typically, in India, we see a capital-led, capex-based IT projects, but that has now completely, getting transformed into an OpEx-based or a cloud-based, technology projects, so that you keep on you pay and you start using the kind of thing. So that's where the affordability came in. But more importantly, most of the time the technology projects had the risk of resource availability and the adaptability of the technology. With pandemic, these two problems have been solved for a larger extent, because today you can you can put a 4-hour meeting request on your calendar and you can expect people to be there 4 hours on the on a virtual meeting and give their suggestions, and if required do a complete process redesign in a day. We didn't had this luxury earlier, because obviously your most important resources were always running your business, and they're getting their availability was a challenge always. So today companies were able to look at these timings or opportunities to do that kind of engagements and ensure that they use their important resources time in an effective way. And the third thing is adoption. As I mentioned, now the nature has forced us to use the technology. We don't have option. I be a consumer, I be a supplier, or I be a no dealer distributor to anybody. But today, everything, until and unless it is not such a critical thing, I don't want to do it in the physical world. I want to do it in the virtual world, because for the safety of me, my family, my kids, right? So you don't, you really can't force for the physical meetings or the physical things anymore. So that's where uh, a byproduct, I can say, because of this pandemic, we had that mindset changes happening with the stakeholders, so that now going forward, the technology projects will have a higher success rate because of the adoption is happening automatically.
Thank you, sir. My last question for our panelists before I sign off today is essentially your three priorities for your business in the next 12 months. I mean, we've seen a very tumultuous last 6 months, and a lot has changed clearly. So now, what are going to be the three priorities in the next 12 months? Maybe Mr. Anand, you can start.
I'll start from where Mr. Mahendranath left off. I think definitely the first is how to look in a more blue skies way about the adoption of technology, very particularly in our case, to reach out to the rural channel partner network as well as the rural consumer. So I think that's an area that we have always assumed was nowhere on the horizon right now, and we were not really prioritizing that in the way that many other industries were doing. But I think certainly one of the core areas is looking at the adoption of a digital outreach method towards both our rural channel partners and consumers, which are the farmers. So that's the first. The second, I think, which has been an interesting challenge and which we have to continue to innovate ways to address, is how do you keep the company culture alive in a scenario where you are not really able to have that kind of interface and face time. So particularly when you have a disaggregated team, salespeople across the country, etc. What do you do in terms of because really, I mean, it's undervalued, but that is really what keeps companies going. So that how to maintain corporate culture. So for instance, at our company, every Saturday morning, about 200 salespeople get together to do a dance fitness class in the morning from all over the country. So just doing what are things like that. This could be something very small, but what can you do to keep company culture alive? I think this would be the second priority for us as an organization. And the third, I think, is learning a deeper lesson from this experience over the last 6 months. and really equipping ourselves for, and really thinking through what could be other kind of black swan challenges that we could be facing, because certainly every industry does have some of those that we don't necessarily think of. We kind of push to the back of our minds, and I think this has really taught us to be more proactive about thinking about what could be those challenges. I mean, in the last 6 months, we also had a challenge with China, and that has led to kind of challenges with input materials from China, etc., etc. So it's kind of been a real lesson about how to anticipate and think about our kind of disaster management response to potential black swan challenges. So those would be my three.
Very interesting. I think I found your third point very interesting. Preparing for black swan challenges. So, anything can come out of anywhere. How are you ready for it? Is essentially the question. Mr. Garg, three priorities for your business in the next 12 months.
Yeah, our first priority will be our production restore, which hampered due to COVID very much in last few months. But now it is going to be normal. But in next few months, we will try to restore production in full capacity. And this is our first priority. Second priority will be to generate more demand, because due to industry like restaurants, hotel industry, and due to this, our demand is hampered. Our demand go very lower. So we will try to generate more demand so we can smoothen our things. For third thing, in our industry, we want to create culture, corporate culture, to be things to be smoothen, working to be smoothen, like technology-based culture, corporate-based culture, and to teach our staff with technology to smoothen the things.
Nice. So I heard production, demand, and people, essentially culture,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Very interesting. Both Mr. Anand and you mentioned culture. Mr. Agarwal, over to you. Three priorities over the next 1 year. Is culture again going to be a mainstay here?
Yeah, definitely. That is definitely something which is on everyone's radar, and building culture of empowerment and performance. Because in these COVID times, we understood that every territory and every store or every zone is different, and there were different rules, and there were different policies, and there were different structures, and you need to empower, and you need to bring in that empowerment culture and performance driven culture, because you can't chase people or digitally. There are no people physically available today. So it's create teams who are self-sufficient and perform without monitoring. So that's the culture that one has to bring in. Definitely one. Number two, expand the digital business. Create sustainable high growth model to leverage offline business. So we have a thought on how do we grow with our digital business,
Right.
because is a new buzzword. And number three, I think strengthen our product profile. We need to work clearly on our product profile, understanding the customer persona, understanding the change in the behavior of the customer, so that our product has to be much more better and good. So and these are the three on the top of the line. But yeah, there are a few more that we need to look at: the geographic expansion, and there are some more stuff on role clarity and agile management processes through digitalization. So there are a lot of things, internal and external, which are going to be there, which is on the top of the agenda.
Interesting. So again, culture, but the other thing which is common also is technology, digital. Everybody did mention that. It's part of culture as well. You need to train people to be able to adopt and work with technology, right? And of course, lastly, you mentioned product. I mean, for a company such as V-Mart with a massive portfolio and a quickly changing portfolio, right? Refreshing portfolio. I think product. So, Mr. Talluri, over to you. This is music to your ears, right? Technology. Everybody clearly knows that one of the bigger focus areas going ahead for the next year is going to be technology, because that only will help improve productivity. It has an impact on culture, definitely, and make the business sustainable for a longer term and competitive.
Yeah, Roudra, I'll just pitch in once again.
Yes, sir.
Every company today is a technology company, and
Absolutely.
Exactly.
CEO is today a CTO. So
This is
you can't escape out of that.
I think you're right. I mean, every company is a digital company if you have to stay relevant in the new economy, so to say, right? Mr. Talluri, over to you. Three top priorities for for your business in the next 12 months and for the industry, I think, from that perspective?
Yeah. First thing is customer success, because I had seen a lot of customers trusted us during this tough time, and a lot of projects have started in last 6 months. Knowing the challenge, the customers have taken the decision. So we have to ensure that those projects become successful, and we stand with those customers, and ensure that SAP delivers what has been promised for those customers. That's and second thing is the ecosystem. We are blessed with our customers. We're blessed with our partners who are going even in this during these tough times. They are ensuring that the project's executions are not hampered or not stopped or not things. They quickly learned. The ecosystem has learned doing the things in virtual world. Doing an entire implementation without having a single physical meeting is something that the partners are trying to execute it today. So taking the partners and ensuring that their business becomes sustainable, because as some all of us know that it is the time everybody expects more from us and at a lesser cost. So while SAP could sail through this thing, but it is what is more important for SAP is that how we take our ecosystem along with us and ensure that they are also able to successfully come out of the pandemic disaster or challenge that has come. That's the second thing. And the third important thing is the empathy. Employee, and as somebody mentioned it very beautifully with the examples. It's been 6 months that I met my colleagues. And I'm sure with SAP's already given directions, I'm not going to meet my colleagues for another at least 4 to 5 months period. This is a tougher time, and you need to ensure that you take all your relationships along with you and continue to excel and come maybe by mid of next year, when we have our beautiful world coming back to us in the physical form, we need to ensure that we are going and starting that physical world once again with more energy and empathy. So these three things: customer success, ecosystem, sustainability, and third is the relationships. These are the three important things.
Fantastic, sir. I mean, I think one of the most important things that you said is a bit of the first and the last. Empathy not only for your co-workers, but also empathy for the rest of the industry, which has gone through a very painful time. Most of the industry has been forced to pivot. SAP and the entire technology sector has a significant role to play in helping all the entire ecosystem come up to speed. And thereby definitely a major responsibility as well in that space. Fantastic. I think we had a great conversation today. We missed one speaker, unfortunately. This brings us to the end of our discussion. Thank you all for joining us today. I want to especially thank our guest speakers for taking the time out on a busy weekday to share their valuable opinions with us. A big shout out to SAP as well for partnering with us for this series. This is us signing off. Stay well and take care. We will be back with another episode of the same series, Hit Refresh, soon.